Hey friends out there, YouTube land, Rob here. Today we're going to be talking about this Sennheiser XSWDs, about how they stream and radio frequency interference, as well as the range, stuff like that. Since we're at it, I kind of thought about this after the fact, but I wanted to share with you a YoloBox stream. I wanted to give you a comparison of the low bitrate haze that some people may experience, and just talk to you about how YoloBox does stream in comparison to side-by-side in-camera recordings from something like the Panasonic HCX1. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of things here, but before we do, I want to let you know that this video is not sponsored. This is my video. I make it for you, make it for me, make it for all of us. I hope that you find it helpful. If you do find it helpful, just make sure to go ahead and use those Amazon links. They'll pop up throughout here. It helps me create more great content for you guys. Okay, the video that you're going to see is actually a YouTube download from the video that was streamed. The internal camera recording is 4K. The download from YouTube is 720. Both of these has been down or upscaled to 1080p. Now, of course, at the time on YoloBox, I was in fact streaming at 1080p. I didn't think about making an in-YoloBox recording using the SD card because I don't generally like using the SD card. Now, the video that you're about to watch is about 5 minutes long. I might poke my head in and out during the video, but I want you to see pretty much that entire video straight through. You'll have the audio levels on the left of the screen, and then you'll be able to see the YoloBox versus the Panasonic HCX1 video on the right of the screen with a split screen comparison. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and roll that now. We'll get it going. Guys, Rob from the studio here. Wanted to let you know the first 30 seconds of audio is going to be a little rough because I want you to hear the straight out of the camera audio. I want you to hear what you hear. After that, we're actually going to normalize the audio, so make sure you check the levels on the left. The very far left level, the lowest one is the pastor, the middle one is the groom, the right one is what YoloBox sends to YouTube. So you'll notice the stepped clipping for audio or the stepped audio augmentation there. So let's get back to it. Guys, this is Rob. Today we're going to actually talk about how far away we can get from YoloBox. I've done a couple tests. I'm just going to turn around and do my 10 paces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now I know that's pretty good because of the bush, right? So I get that. Everything should still be recording properly. These XSWDs have been set to unity with YoloBox. Well, with the Panasonic HCX1, they are at a gain of some minus gain, minus about 7 points of gain on the audio controls, which allow me to be right at minus 12 decibels. So instead of the center line, they're going to the left of it some. So anyways, what I found that using these microphones, about 10... Boy, that was fun, wasn't it? What I want you to hear at that last part, when all three audio sources were being played at the same time, you get a lot of audio phase resonance. There's lots of things that are going on there. That's why you don't want that to happen. So you need your audio sources to be synchronized properly so that you don't get that kind of weird sound. So if you ever experience that, now you know. The next few seconds or minutes of video, we're just going to let you listen, and I'll annotate some things on screen that I think are important for you to notice. But recognize throughout this next entire portion, you won't hear or see any audio dropouts. But once we open up that Kamika, well, let's see what happens. Paces is about how far I usually get from the camera before I start introducing a problem. And so let's do that again and actually just see how far away I really get so we know how many feet from the contact point. Okay, because I want to give you guys a real number. Okay. And that real number for wireless transmitters, 25 feet. So this is what 25 feet looks like. I got to tell you, on site, on location, this is way close for me as a filmmaker, right? I feel like this is way close. I'd like to be more like 30 feet, and 30 feet would put me somewhere right about here. Now, I guess I could do 30 feet. This range would really be the closest that I would ever be when it comes to recording. And the other reason that this would be the closest I would ever be is because, number one, it's too close except for like a detail camera getting some shots of a stand ceremony or something, but also because it's not even at this range when I'm just holding the microphone, I can actually make the microphone turn off by grabbing around it. It's not powerful enough to get through there, which causes, of course, interference and dropouts. That's not good at all. That is least likely to happen here at this 25-foot mark, apparently, but about this distance. Now, it's important to know that I've got the groom's mic that I always use coming into channel 2, and I've got the pastor's mic coming into channel 1. And it seems like everything's going fine, but really what we want to do before anything else is actually introduce some radio frequency interference. Okay, so I'm coming over here, I'm getting closer. Maybe I should have done it back over there, but let's go ahead and turn on another wireless transmitter. Both of these systems operate on the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum, right? The Wi-Fi spectrum. Now they are both on. The question is, has anybody heard any dropouts? So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one right here. They're not connected to anything. They're not going anywhere. I'm just gonna put it where I would normally keep it on the camera, which would be up there. Now, I'd like to know, I guess that's the thing, how well these are recording. So we're gonna come over here. You can hear some wind noise right now because they're not using any furries. Hey, guess what? We've actually had it. You can see that once I get about 25 feet away from the camera, that Kamika Wireless Boom XD is interfering with the signal of the Sennheiser. You heard it. And over the next few minutes, you will actually hear that continuously. So let's just jump back in here, and next time I'll see you is when I start talking about some of the dropouts where we actually start losing signal from the Sennheiser XSWD. Currently, that staticky sound that you hear, and you will hear immediately when I start playing again, is actually interference, as the Boom XD is interfering with the XSWD's signal channels and frequency hopping that it's trying to do to give us a nice signal. So let's listen up. Little dead cats or anything on here, I'm not trying to protect them. And I've already lost signal in this. It's gone, completely gone. And over here, we're still green. So the pastor mic went out, the groom mic stayed okay, and the pastor mic is out again. And now the groom mic, they both don't like being held like this. The problem is I can't see what they're actually doing in the pocket. So I'll have to go into Adobe Premiere and look at the waveforms and listen and actually see, which is an important reason to have the two microphones separated on different channels for recording so that we'll know. We're going to turn around here real quick. Actually, let's get a baseline test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to turn all the way around. Can you hear me? All right, I'm going to jump back in a little earlier than I thought. At this point in time in the testing, I'm actually looking on the microphones themselves, the little transmitters, to see what indicator the light is showing. Now, at this point in time, the light's showing a red indicator. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's red. So that's making me think that we've actually dropped the signal. And although you're hearing that signal interference, we actually have not dropped the signal yet. So although I think I have, because of what the microphones are showing me, well, we weren't, apparently, because the waveforms in here show that we have not dropped the signal. So, important thing to listen for and look for as we continue along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, turning left, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all of these directions should allow us to know whether or not these mics are actually working. Anybody in between us could cause a problem for the mic. And did you notice the pastor channel is dropping out right now? That far left meter, you can see dropping down there to past minus 50, minus 60 decibels. It is dropping out every time we turn around. That's what we're looking for the actual dropouts. This is a direct interference caused from the Kamika Wireless the Boom XD. So what this means is that when you're out there using wireless systems, you got to be careful for that. But before we continue any more about that discussion, let's jump back into it. How they're turning on and off are an issue. And of course, this is now going closer to that 30-foot mark. As we move back, as I come this way, maybe you can hear how they drop out. This right here, this spot right here is 30 paces, which would be about 75 feet if my 10-pace calculation at 25 feet is right. So we're about 75 feet away right now. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turning around. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turning left. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And coming back. And it seems like talking and moving in any kind of manner when you get to these ranges are just going to completely destroy your audio signal. All right. Now, recently we've been focusing on all of the audio, right? But let's actually talk about the video. And I wanted to talk about it in this order so that we could actually take the things that are most startling away first, so that we could then kind of peel back that onion, so to speak. Bad audio will ruin any video. just that simple. Doesn't matter the video quality. Audio is half of video. If you can't hear it, you're not going to watch it no matter how good it looks like, unless it's a particular kind of material that some of you guys are grinning about right now. And I'm talking about comic books. If you were thinking something else, you guys are dirty minds. The reality is, if your audio is no good, people are going to start tuning out. Now, what do people expect from a live stream? I'll talk about that maybe a little bit after this part, but right here, I want you to notice specifically as I walk back to the camera, look at what's happening, compare the Haze difference from the YoloBox, that low bitrate Haze compared to the in-camera recording. Remember, there is a difference in the recording resolutions right now, but there is a link below so that you can actually see the original 1080p stream and see for yourself. More importantly than the difference in the low bitrate Haze, check out the difference in the frame rates, right? Because of that variable frame rate that YoloBox has, you will actually see that although the audio is synced up, the video is not. Now the master audio here, of course, is the Panasonic, because it's the one that's recording in full 4K in this instance. So the YoloBox is trying to piggyback off the top of that when being synced in Premiere. And Premiere only knows the time code from YoloBox. It only syncs to that audio channel. So yeah, check that out as we go forward to now. So I'm going to have to think about the takeaways, but it seems like the original takeaways, the immediate ones are with these microphones outdoors. We're talking specifically outdoors. I have not had these problems indoors, and that makes sense, right? Indoors, it's going to confine the signal. The signal is going to bounce. But outdoors, 25 feet, that's going to be pretty much the magic spot. And you still may have dropouts at 25 feet. The question would be, do I get dropouts even closer? Could I get a camera closer? Could I be closer somewhere here, like half that distance, 10 to 12 feet? Could I be here and then have enough range or enough signal strength not to block out? So that's a good point. So I'm looking at both of my mics right now, and it seems like Groom mic is coming in and out a little bit. Pastor mic seems to be staying okay. They're both out. They're both out when I turn around like that. And then they seem to, the pastor mic's finally coming back in. Let's see what happens when they're in your pocket, because that's where the people put them. They put them in their pocket, and then it all falls apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess that's going to be it for right now. We'll go check this out and see how they did. Coming around back. Oh, yeah. How did YoloBox do? 30 frames a second, 5,400 kilobits per second. Okay, we're back. Now, I tried to not really do too much chit-chat. I just wanted you to watch. And I did annotate a couple of times throughout there where interference was picking up. A couple of observations that we need to know. Number one, the radio frequency interference happens almost immediately when you turn on something like Kamika, the Boom XD, or any other 2.4 gigahertz source. It's pretty simple. It's a Wi-Fi source that operates on the same Wi-Fi band, even at the same milliwatts. These are 10 milliwatts that they both work at, and they both share the same space. So Sennheiser has worked very hard to make using multiple Sennheisers in the same area pretty good as far as not interfering with one another. But the minute that we turn on an additional Wi-Fi source like this, broadcasting, that's a problem. Which means that if you're close to routers, if you're close to different networks and things like that, you could have issues. Now, out on the beach, what did we find out? Out on the beach, it was pretty simple to say that about 20 feet is the max that I think I would push it. Of course, we were able to go further, without a doubt. We're able to go about 75 feet with these guys. But we also noticed that the intermittent pickup and dropout is pretty huge. So what did we notice on the YoloBox stream? Well, first of all, we have to know what YoloBox does. YoloBox takes all of your stereo or whatever channel, but we don't record in stereo, they're both left and right mono, but it's in the camera combined to a stereo left and right signal. Well, maybe not stereo, but a left and right signal nonetheless. They are unique left and right signals. YoloBox takes the left and right, condenses it into one signal, then duplicates that so that it produces a stereo. Well, it's really a dual mono. And that's what you stream at. So that's what YouTube is getting. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the lowest signal and the highest signal will be combined together, and if you have any audio interference, it will just be multiplied. In this instance, we found that YouTube is actually boosting the signal an additional 6 decibels over my highest signal, which then introduced some clipping. So what do? Well, this could be a problem 2 different ways. YouTube is normalizing. I thought that in my system and how I set everything that I had done a good job normalizing my gain, which means that everything was set at a 1-to-1 ratio. Turns out that I didn't. I think what's happening is that part of that audio stream is getting compressed through YouTube, through YoloBox at a restream server or somewhere like that, because this is restreamed through the YoloLive streaming service in order to get to YouTube, and there could be some compression there that's causing an issue. Now, the nice thing that we know, it's very easy at that point to just lower your gain by 6 decibels. But we might get into a point where we're lowering it and then YouTube is boosting it. Well, if you do that too much, you then introduce that audio echo, that underwater sound. You don't want to do that. So if your original intention is to lower your audio here, I'd say no. I'd say make sure that you have your tracks set where you want them, maybe even boost the signal here so that YouTube doesn't have to do as much processing on its end to normalize your signal. That would probably be my takeaway from here. Another thing that we're going to look at is the RFI interference. Now, with the radio frequency interference and these guys going together, I couldn't get more than 15, 20 feet away before turning around with these on started dropping the signal. Now, it is true that when you're just using the Sennheisers and you turn around and one drops the signal and the other, specifically for the restream capability or the internal recording, that doesn't really hurt too much because, well, the other mic can pick up some of that audio so you don't necessarily notice it. Like when the groom's got one on and the pastor's got one on, if the pastor drops out, the groom's still picking up the pastor and vice versa. And since they don't generally drop out at the same time, but they could, you're kind of protected there. So if you're just using these two, you're probably pretty good at about 20 feet. The minute that you introduced this, or I introduced this, you're dropping down to probably a 10-foot radius or something like that. I'm just not interested in all that. So if you're going to use multiple systems, use the same system. Look at different systems for different environments. It means mainly that I probably will need an additional system to go along with this in case someone else at the wedding or wherever I am is causing some kind of interference that is a problem. Let's move on from audio to video and talk about YoloBox. Well, yes, we talked a little bit about that low bit rate haze that's present there. Now, whether or not it's happening from YoloBox not being powerful enough to broadcast the signal, or whether it's happening from the restream server, I can't say. I think from looking at the YoloBox picture, I think that the picture on YoloBox looks pretty nice. But then I'm contemplated or confused because, well, when I look at the SD card videos from YoloBox, and I haven't done this recently, but in the past, I have noticed that same kind of low bit rate haze. Now, how much of that is going to make a difference in what you do actually isn't as important because you're never really comparing 4K to 1080p restreamed live at the same time. We're only doing that in this video. But it is a good thing to know about so that you can set some expectations for your clients. It's also another reason that you can upsell or charge more for your stream because you're providing that 4K download or that 1080p download from your internal recording. So there could be some business opportunities there. Where we see the biggest issue is the variable frame rate, in my opinion. I don't necessarily mind the constant quality bit rate. I don't mind that the bit rate might jump around and things like that, mainly because although it could reduce in lower stream quality or result in lower stream quality, it means that you're able to stream in more places, specifically places that are data starved, easier. And this is a big deal. But that frame rate, man, notice how when you looked at the video itself was in sync with the audio, but the video part of it, you know, the YoloBox could be a couple of frames behind the master clock of the Panasonic. Well, that's because of that variable frame rate. And that's something I think would be a big help if we could just get a variable frame rate change to constant frame rate. I don't mind the variable bit rate. What would you do to change any of that? Well, let's talk about this. If what you saw isn't what you want, your option is OBS or XSplit or something like that. And what can you do? Well, if you're going to do that, then you're able to stream at your own data settings. You can set all that stuff. I know for a fact, after going for the past 2 months, different weddings with this, funerals with OBS while my YoloBox was down, oh my goodness, I was able to get a higher quality, but it was a lot more work on location. It really took my 1-man, 2-man team and made it a 3-man or 4-man team. It really did, because you have to monitor these settings. You have to test, retest, and make sure. And then if at any point in time, see, I can stream at 4K if I want to, if my throughput bit rate is high enough, right? If it's not high enough, you're going to start dropping frames with OBS. It's just, you're just going to do it anywhere, right? And if that's the case, then you could have a beautiful 4K stream that only comes through at 10, 15 frames per second. I don't know. How about nice audio and a variable bit rate stream at a constant frame rate, even 30 frames per second, 28 frames per second? It's going to look better on YoloBox. There's a lot of headache that's involved. YoloBox also is many times easier. Fewer people are required. I can make my two-man team stay a two-man team instead of having to add that third person just to run the OBS. It is true, OBS, and if you're doing it yourself, you're going to get a higher quality. I think for portability and ease of use on location, I'm just so happy to have YoloBox back. You have no idea how much easier this makes my life. So let's talk a little bit about audio recording. So when we're recording over here on my Panasonic, I'm recording at 48K 16-bit. That's pretty much the base that you'd want to record. Something like that is equivalent to CD quality sound. When I record to my Zoom H6, I'm recording it generally 96K at 24-bit, although it'll go up to 196K. Pretty interesting stuff there. YouTube, just so you know, it's recording and broadcasting at 176K at 16-bit generally. This is important because YouTube has all those shows. Anything over 96 kilohertz sample rate really is getting into like movie quality sound and cinema type of sound stuff, which is good. Spoken audio at 96K is pretty excellent. There is a new device that, well, not new, but the Zoom F6 actually records at 32-bit float points, recording at 196K. That's not this, but it's a big square unit. And that is really cool. So if you're worried about your audio, getting into something that does a 32-bit float point recording is going to be your next step up the line because of what it gives for you. It's like editing a RAW photo as compared to a JPEG. You just have so much more room to recover detail that's lost. Curtis Judd does a really great review of the Zoom F6. If you want to see all the amazing things that you can do with that in post-production after the recording and what the benefits of 32-bit float point recording are for audio, check that out. That might be where you need to go if you're worried about audio. For me, I'm just going to stick with this 24-bit at 96K and go on from there. Guys, that's it today. What did you think? How did you like everything that you saw? Was it what you expected? Don't forget to not be too hard on the YoloBox video because, well, it's been upsampled from 720. I've actually got the link down below for the original video that you can go see. It's a private link, so just go check it out, see what you think for yourself, and then make a decision. Guys, I'm Rob. I want to thank you for watching. Remind you that if you like anything you saw here, you can grab one using the Amazon link below, and I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye for now.